The downstairs apartment is separated by a lockable door in the stairway. It was an open layout down there, with the mini kitchen being a part of the living room area, then my bedroom, bathroom, and laundry room down the hall, and a side entrance through the living room. I started renting the apartment when I was 22, only to save money and have a little more privacy, even though my parents would be away for a fair amount of time. This was done on a weekend when my parents were away so I could be ace loud as I want. When my parents were away, I would leave the door between my apartment and the upstairs unlocked so I wouldn't have to worry about them coming down at random. I kept the drinks in the fridge upstairs because it was bigger and it literally just worked better because my friends drove and had been drinking both of them. I invited my friends Anthony and Jay over just to shoot the loss and have a couple drinks on the couch while watching the hockey game because my parents weren't home. We were blasting music as we relaxed. I wouldn't say I got drunk, but I definitely got a buzz by the end of the game. Chose to spend the night at my house because the couch downstairs was so big that it could easily sleep 3 people if they were properly laid out. After a long night of drinking, I said goodnight and went to my room to sleep. But a few hours later, I found myself waking up in my bed. It was still in the middle of the night or early morning when I heard footsteps upstairs. I assumed that it was Anthony or Jay going upstairs to check my parents' refrigerator for cold water or something, so I didn't allow it to annoy me. I closed my eyes once more, but a few minutes later, I heard something else. The sound of my bedroom doorknob. Someone tried to twist it, but it was locked. I always lock my bedroom door out of habit. I wondered why they were trying to enter, but I was exhausted and reasoned that if I just remained silent and pretended to be asleep, they would go back to sleep. It may sound strange, but I simply didn't have the energy to be bothered at all, so it worked. I fell asleep quickly, and when I woke up the following morning, Jay was still asleep. But Anthony had already left. I asked Anthony if he tried to enter my room last night, and he said that he didn't think so, but that he didn't remember because he got pretty drunk. He and I went to a nearby deli to get some bacon, eggs, cheeses, and coffee. And then we ate them in my backyard. He left shortly after that, and I pretty much carried on with my day as usual. I didn't ask Anthony if he tried to enter my room because, to be honest, I didn't care that much about it. It wasn't a big deal. Think I spent the majority of that Saturday out with other friends. I returned home fairly late, but I wasn't really drunk because it was more of a marathon that day. I was exhausted though, so I had a snack, cleaned up, and went straight to bed. When I say went to bed, I mean that I crawled into bed and watched for about an hour on TV. As soon as I turned off the TV, I heard thumps and creaks from above, almost like footsteps, upstairs in the kitchen. I had to pay close attention and listen, though. For a few minutes, I sat up and waited to hear something else, but the sound stopped, and I felt my heart begin to beat a little faster. Eventually, I laid down and relaxed, realizing that it was probably just some everyday house-settling noises, and that my paranoid thoughts were making them seem louder than they actually were. I couldn't have been more mistaken. When I heard the doorknob to my bedroom door move again, I should have followed my instincts. I jumped up so fast that you would think I was about to be struck by a bus, but it was only for a few seconds. The previous night, however, there was a slight knock on the door, followed by the doorknob. I didn't say anything, so I grabbed my phone off the bed and began texting my family, Anthony, and Jay. I knew there was very little chance that it was one of my friends, but I secretly hoped that one of them would answer and say, "Yes, it's me." My parents didn't answer the phone. They must have been asleep, and they weren't expected to return until Monday. There was no way I was going to reveal who was there, so I slipped out of bed and hid behind the dresser in the corner.
Clutching a blunt weapon and the terrifying possibility that someone outside might rush the bed and kick down the door. I'm not joking. I suppose 10 minutes passed and I remained in that position, but there were no more knocks. Since I didn't feel safe leaving the room, I finally called 911 and whispered as softly as possible while still being loud enough to be heard. I waited on the line with the 911 operator until the police arrived, asking the operator if she could instruct them to meet me at my bedroom window. Once an officer was outside my window, they tapped it and I went to open it. I was on the first floor, thank God. After giving him the key to the side door, I heard the entrance to my apartment open. I only then left my bedroom and was met by 2 officers. I turned on all the lights because my apartment was small and there weren't many places to hide, so the search down there was quick. Next, we went upstairs and searched the main floor of the house and found nothing. I told the officers what each room was before they entered, and about 30 seconds later, I heard a commotion in my parents' room. When I heard it, I went into the room and saw 2 officers shouting at someone beneath my parents' bed. I felt sick to my stomach, so I told them to wait downstairs. A few minutes later, they came down the stairs with a tall, dirty, and scary-looking man, wearing shorts and a sweatshirt. They asked me if I knew him, and I replied that I didn't, but the look of hate that man gave me was terrifying. He looked like he might have been homeless, insane, or both. Once he was gone, I felt so much better. The police instructed me to follow up with them if I or my parents wanted to. After they left, I texted every family and friend group I knew because it was so late and only a few people answered. I then called my parents first thing in the morning, to tell them what had happened. And they were obviously shocked, as anyone would be. But since the man was homeless and nothing had been stolen, my parents didn't pursue any legal action. I feel like it's possible that I left the front door unlocked that night when Jay and Anthony came over, and he just walked right in when we were blasting music. Or even scarier, he could have been in the house for much longer than that, and we never knew.